Largely overshadowed by the war that raged on for half the decade, the 1940s was an otherwise busy and bold era for the human race. It saw the invention of the microwave, commercial television, and nuclear power. Among this new technology, however, lurks an abundance of cold cases that have largely been forgotten about in the years since. In today's episode, we'll be exploring two horrific, unsolved cases from the 1940s. But first, I'd like to give a heartfelt thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's episode. It can be difficult to process the incredibly fast-paced world we live in today. We're constantly bombarded with breaking news and social media notifications alerting us of a recent tragedy or profiting from the spread of doom and gloom. And this time of year, as the days are shorter, colder, and darker, times can be hard. For us at Cold Case Detective, spending hours upon hours researching the grim and gritty nature of cold cases and the haunting reality of death and disappearance can pose a risk to our mental health. But it does not have to be this way. If you're like so many people who feel there's something preventing you from achieving your goals or knocking down your happiness, then we're grateful to be able to share with you a plan that works. A plan called BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a safe and secure online therapy resource that carefully evaluates your needs and pairs you with your very own licensed professional therapist. From the moment you sign up, you're guaranteed to start communicating with a therapist in just 48 hours. Even if you require someone highly specialized, BetterHelp hosts a network of over 20,000 therapists with a broad range of expertise. They can help clients from anywhere in the world, which is extra helpful for those who live in areas where therapy may not be readily available. The website is easy to navigate and allows you to message your therapist at any time, while also providing weekly phone or video sessions, all from the comfort of your computer. Best of all, if the first therapist isn't working perfectly for you, BetterHelp will instantly match you with another. And in addition to offering more affordable options than typical offline therapy, BetterHelp also provides financial aid to those who may not be able to pay full price. To top it off, as a special promotion for Cold Case Detective viewers, you can get 10% off your first month when you sign up at betterhelp.com/coldcasedetective. To take your first step, visit betterhelp.com/coldcasedetective, that's HELP, and join over 1 million people getting back in front of their mental health with the compassionate help of an experienced professional. We're grateful to have you here with us. And now let's dive in with today's mysteries. Dorothy Forstein. Born in 1909, little is documented about the early life of Dorothy Cooper. In 1942, she married her childhood sweetheart, a man named Jules Forstein, who had become a widower and a single parent to two young girls 2 years before. His wife, Molly, had died in childbirth. As a result, Jules had been left to raise his children Myrna and Marcy alone. Following the union, Dorothy gave birth to her first and only child with Jules, a son they named Edward. Their marriage was described as a happy one, and neighbors and friends called Dorothy a joyful and outgoing woman who adored her family. Jules was a city council clerk when the pair first got together, but was promoted to a magistrate in 1943. Following their marriage, Dorothy and Jules moved into a 3-story home in North Franklin Street, Philadelphia. On January 25, 1945, 36-year-old Dorothy left the children in the care of a neighbor so that she could run errands. When she returned home that evening, she was beaten severely by an unidentified intruder. During the struggle, Dorothy knocked the telephone off its base, and the live operator on the other end of the line immediately alerted the authorities after becoming alarmed at what she was hearing from Dorothy's end. The unknown assailant fled at the sound of police sirens, leaving Dorothy alive, but barely. She'd been assaulted so badly that she'd suffered a broken nose and jaw, a concussion, and a fractured shoulder. Fortunately, Dorothy pulled through the attack and made a full recovery. When questioned by police, however, she was unable to identify or even describe her attacker, telling investigators, "Someone jumped out at me. I couldn't see who it was. He just hit me and hit me." Notably, nothing had been stolen from the home, and there were no signs of forced entry, something which authorities found most peculiar. Speaking with neighbors, officers discovered that they had a witness, but again, she was unable to identify or describe the assailant. The neighbor explained that she had seen someone either walking with Mrs. Forstein or closely following behind as she walked to her front door. However, the neighbor didn't pay close attention as she didn't think anything of it. It was only after word spread about Dorothy's attack that the witness believed what she'd seen might be of importance. After the events of that night, the 36-year-old mother of three became anxious and reclusive. She jumped at any sudden sounds, no matter how slight, and made a point of double and triple checking that all the doors and windows in the home were locked at night. It took several years for Dorothy to resemble her old self again, but sadly, further tragedy was just around the corner. On October 18th, 1949, Jules left home to attend a political banquet. The couple's oldest daughter, Myrna, now 19, also left to stay over at a friend's house for the night. At around 9 p.m., Dorothy called a friend to arrange a shopping date for the following day. There are mixed reports about when Jules called Dorothy that evening. Modern articles state that he phoned his wife between 5 and 6 p.m. At this time, he was about to leave his office and head to the banquet. However, older newspaper clippings from 1949 report that he called her around 10 p.m., about an hour before he arrived home. The articles do agree, however, that Dorothy seemed perfectly fine and in good spirits when he called. When Jules arrived home at around 11 p.m., he was surprised to find Marcy and Edward alone in a bedroom. The pair were huddled together and evidently scared as they cried, "Mummy's gone." Alarmed by what they were saying, Jules searched the home looking for his wife and then called several of Dorothy's friends in an attempt to locate her. But nobody had seen or heard from her that evening, except for the friend with whom she'd made plans. Frightened for the safety of his wife, Jules called the local police captain and informed him of the situation. Within hours, a search team had mobilized. Extensive searches of the local neighborhood and beyond took place. Investigators circulated Dorothy's description to the law enforcement groups in 8 eastern states while they searched mental hospitals, morgues, and hotels all across the country for any sign of the 40-year-old. But they came away empty-handed every time. Law enforcement's only clue came from 9-year-old Marcy, who revealed that she'd been awoken by a noise in the middle of the night. About 15 minutes before Jules arrived home, Marcy had stepped out of her room into the hall, where she'd seen a middle-aged man around her father's age come up the stairs and enter her mother's bedroom. She saw her mother lying on the floor and told authorities that she looked sick. Moments later, the man picked up Dorothy and tossed her over his shoulder. The 40-year-old didn't stir, and the man, wearing a brown peaked cap, went to carry her downstairs. When Marcy asked what he was doing, the man patted her on the head and told her, "Go back to sleep, little one. Your mum's fine." Marcy recalled that she had never seen the man before. Investigators did not immediately believe this story, noting that children were prone to having wild and overactive imaginations. But after Marcy met with a psychiatrist, it was confirmed that the little girl appeared to be telling the truth. Notably, in both the kidnapping and the assault incidents, no items were taken from the scene, ruling out robbery as a motive. No strange prints were found in the home, and there were never any signs of forced entry. In fact, the man who took Dorothy is believed to have locked the front door behind him on the way out. These details make the case particularly bizarre. Theories in Dorothy's case are few and far between. Investigators were quick to admit that they had no leads, even within the first few days of the 40-year-old's disappearance. Newspaper clippings from 1949 state that the police suggested she'd become the victim of amnesia, but it's unclear why they failed to elaborate further on that point. One of the main theories in Dorothy's case is that she was attacked and later abducted by somebody who held a grudge against her husband, Jules. A possible suspect has been named as Morris Anmuth, a textile salesman who, after being pulled from a rioting crowd, was allegedly beaten for 20 minutes by 2 police officers. He was charged with several minor offenses and fined $10. Afterwards, he filed assault and battery charges against the police officers who'd reportedly attacked him, but Jules, who was a magistrate at the time, dropped them. However, there was never any evidence connecting Anmuth to the scene of either the assault or the kidnapping. Another theory suggests that Jules paid someone to harm his wife. Armchair detectives have proposed the idea that Dorothy was meant to be killed during the first assault, but by a stroke of luck, managed to survive. As a result, a hired hitman was paid to return to the scene and finish the job. However, it has been pointed out that Jules would have known how long it would take for him to be able to declare Dorothy dead or access any of her assets if she had simply gone missing. If he was to benefit from this plan, he would have been better off having his wife's body be found. It has also been suggested that perhaps Dorothy staged her disappearance, possibly due to financial issues, or maybe she didn't want to live her life in fear anymore. It's been suggested that she left her children behind because she didn't want to face any sort of kidnapping charges if she was discovered, or maybe she felt that she stood a better chance of disappearing if she went alone. A blogger at American Hauntings wrote about Dorothy's case in 2003. After posting their segment, however, they received a pleasant and non-threatening letter from a lawyer acting on behalf of the Forstein family, who requested that the post be removed. Reportedly, other media outlets and bloggers who'd covered the case around this time also received these requests. It's unclear why the Forstein family don't wish the case to be re-examined. It could be that they don't want to open old wounds, but it seems like a strange course of action nonetheless. In the aftermath of the vanishing, Jules offered a reward of $1,000 for information leading to an arrest, but he later withdrew this money because he needed it. Interestingly, when Jules died in 1956, he left behind an estate worth $4,906 to his children. That's the modern-day equivalent of around $50,000. Meanwhile, Dorothy's assets were worth around $9,946, or a little over $115,000 today, when she disappeared in 1949. Her assets were mainly in securities found in her security deposit box shortly after she vanished. Online sleuths have wondered if the couple were under financial stress at the time of the disappearance, and if this, or her assets, had anything to do with Dorothy's disappearance. A year after Jules's death, Dorothy was declared legally dead. The judge's decision was based on a petition filed by her oldest stepdaughter, Myrna. Still, the case remains unsolved. Mary Virginia Carpenter. On June 1st, 1948, 21-year-old Mary Virginia Carpenter left her home in Texarkana, Texas, and took a train to the city of Denton, 6 hours away. With her, Virginia had a brown steamer trunk, a matching makeup case, and a black hat box. While on the train, she met a fellow Texarkana native named Marjorie Webster, who was on her way to enroll at Texas State College for Women, or as it's known today, Texas Women's University. This was also Virginia's plan, and so the pair got talking. Virginia had previously attended the University of Arkansas, where she had studied journalism, but she had later transferred to science studies instead, with the intention of becoming a lab technician. She had first enrolled at TSCW for the 1945-1946 school year, but had to take a break afterwards to help out her sick mother. Her father had died when Virginia was just 15, and she was an only child, leaving her as the only person available to care for her mother. The good thing about staying at home, however, is that it allowed her to save up more money to put toward her education. For a while, Virginia attended Texarkana Junior College before finally enrolling at TSCW for the 1948 summer term. She planned to begin her lab technician training in the autumn. At the station, Virginia and Marjorie agreed to share a cab to campus. However, by the time they arrived, the 21-year-old realized that she'd forgotten to check on her luggage and asked the cab driver, Edgar Ray Jack Zachary, how much it would cost to return to the train station. Marjorie asked Virginia if she wished for her company on the return trip, but Virginia told her, "No, I'll go alone. I'll be all right." As a result, the pair parted ways, and Virginia headed back to the station. Here, she discovered that her luggage was yet to appear. An attendant at the train station told her that her trunk would not be arriving for some time yet, and so Jack Zachary, the cab driver, offered to pick it up for her in the morning. Virginia agreed, giving him her station ticket with her dorm room number and name on the back. She also gave him $1 to cover the travel expense of him making this separate trip for her. It was around 9:30 p.m. by the time Virginia arrived at Brackenridge Hall at the university. According to Zachary's later statement to the police, the 20-year-old got out of the cab and approached two men who were standing near a yellow or cream-colored convertible. The vehicle was described as possibly being a Pontiac, and Zachary claimed that one of the men was tall, while the other was chunky. Reportedly, Virginia appeared to know them. As she walked up to them, she asked, "What are you doing here?" as if she was surprised to see them there. As they began talking, Zachary left. The following morning, he collected Virginia's steamer trunk and left it on the front lawn of the building. He claimed that she had asked him to leave it there the night before, but the dean of women at the university noted that it was highly unusual for a student's luggage to be left on the lawn rather than taken to their door. The trunk stayed out on the lawn for 2 days until it was finally taken in by staff. Meanwhile, Virginia's boyfriend, Kenny Branham, called her mother and told her that he hadn't spoken with the 21-year-old in 3 days. This was unusual. Her mother, Hazel, contacted the university and discovered that Virginia had not enrolled. She then began phoning around friends and family, asking if anyone had seen her. They hadn't, and so Hazel reported her daughter missing, and the search began. As investigators traced Virginia's last known movements, they came across cab driver Jack Zachary, who told them about the yellow or cream-colored vehicle. This car was tracked down to a young man whose girlfriend was attending TSCW. The couple claimed that they'd noticed the two men walking around the car, but hadn't seen them interacting with Virginia. This young man and his girlfriend were ruled out as having anything to do with the 21-year-old's disappearance. 2 days after Virginia went missing, a gas station attendant in the city of Aubrey, Texas, thought he saw her in a yellow convertible. She was accompanied by 2 men and a young woman. Then, on June 11th, a ticket agent spotted a young woman resembling Virginia at a bus station in DeQueen, Arkansas. She had just gotten off a bus from Texarkana and reportedly looked nervous as she waited at the station, looking out the doors and biting her lip. She eventually left with an older man thought to be in his mid-20s. Shortly after this sighting, the agent received a call from a woman who asked if a Miss Virginia Carpenter was there. However, the agent didn't think much of any of this until the following day, when she learned of Virginia's disappearance in the local papers. She promptly contacted the police and identified the 21-year-old from a photograph, but later she became uncertain if she had correctly identified the young woman. A woman who looked like Virginia was also seen in Cherano, Texas. There have been numerous other sightings of Virginia up and down the country. None of them, including the ones just mentioned, have ever been confirmed. Investigators wondered if perhaps she'd run off with another lover, and several of Virginia's former boyfriends speculated that this was the case, as they noted she became infatuated easily. Her family, though, believed that the 21-year-old wouldn't leave without saying. Virginia had been engaged at some point before her disappearance, but she broke off the relationship just weeks before the wedding. Her current boyfriend, Kenny Branham, passed a polygraph test. This, combined with his lack of motive, made law enforcement rule him out of the investigation. The search for Virginia was huge and involved the investigation of wooded areas, creeks, storm drains, and abandoned wells. Both aeroplanes and boats were used, but despite the best efforts of authorities, no trace of Virginia was ever found. Her trunk contained no clues as to her whereabouts, and her handbag has never been located. Law enforcement does not believe that Virginia left of her own accord, as they were unable to find a reason that would prompt her to run away. She had no criminal history, no jealous ex-boyfriends, no lovers to run away with, didn't owe anybody any money, and according to her most recent medical examination, which occurred shortly before she went missing, she was not pregnant. On October 18th, 1959, a 3x1 wooden box was found in a smokehouse near an abandoned farmhouse about 7.5 miles northeast of Jefferson, Texas. It contained human remains, specifically the skeletal remains of a woman. While it was determined that the bones belonged to a white female with a shortened leg, which Virginia had, the dentals did not match those of the 21-year-old. Jack Zachary, Virginia's cab driver on the day she went missing, is still considered a suspect in her case. He had a record for petty crimes and a reputation for being aggressive and physically abusive. Furthermore, he was charged with attempted rape in 1957, but the charges were dropped when the victim asked that the police didn't prosecute him. while Zachary's wife vouched for him on the night of the disappearance, claiming that he had been with her from 10 p.m. onwards that evening, she came forward 10 years later to recant the alibi she'd given him. She claimed that he was abusive towards her, and he had forced her to fabricate an alibi, and admitted that he hadn't actually come home until about 2 or 3 a.m. that night. Although Zachary was questioned several times and passed 2 polygraph tests in relation to Virginia's case, he was never ruled out. He died in 1984. No concrete evidence tied him to the disappearance. It has been theorized that Virginia fell victim to the Texarkana Phantom Killer, the individual responsible for the Texarkana Moonlight murders, in which 5 young people were slain in and around Texarkana in 1946, mostly in lovers' lanes. The culprit has never been identified or apprehended, and Virginia was acquaintances with 3 of the victims. However, there is no evidence to indicate she became one of the Phantom Killer's victims. In 1998, a man came forward to tell investigators that he believed 2 men raped and killed Virginia shortly after she went missing. He said that her body had been buried in the dam at a stock tank near the university campus. While the dam was searched, it revealed no remains nor any other evidence. The 2 men who were named as perpetrators were both dead by this time and have never been publicly identified. 21-year-old Mary Virginia Carpenter was last seen outside Brackenridge Hall at the Texas State College for Women in Denton at around 9:30 p.m. on the evening of June 1st, 1948. She is described as a white woman standing at 5'3" and weighing 120 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. She has an appendectomy scar on her abdomen, and she limps due to a prior bone infection in her right hip. She was recovering from a severe case of sunburn at the time of her disappearance, and may use the nickname Jimmy. She was last seen wearing a white dress with brown, red, and green stripes and silver buttons down the front, red leather high-heeled platform shoes, a white straw hat with a flipped-up brim and a feather in the back, and a gold watch. She was also carrying a red handbag. If Virginia is still alive, she will be 94 years old. If you have any information about her case, you can call the Denton County Sheriff's Office on 940-349-1600. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own theories and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $2 each month. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.